All right, hey everybody, we are back, and I find this article here I found very interesting, and I think you will too, because it's talking about why naturally aspirated engines are making a comeback, and that's pretty cool. But the reasoning they're showing here, and look at this, okay? This is not your average, truck engine. We are talking about something very interesting here in the supercar world that we're wondering if it is going to trickle back down into the truck world, in our opinion, with this. But so let's dive into this. It says turbocharged engines took over because they promise more power with less fuel. Car makers and drivers are circling back to naturally aspirated engines now, as it's more apparent with hypercars. Ferrari still building the V12, Bugatti revealing a V16 without turbos, and Stellantis bringing back the V8 Hemi, and it's not just for nostalgia's sake. It says right here, naturally aspirated engines deliver better throttle response. You don't have any turbo leg, less complexity, better durability, and a sound that turbos can't fake. Hybrid systems are now giving a lifeline to adding power without killing that character. Okay, the result is clear. Naturally aspirated engines are not gone. They are adapting, and their new comeback is louder than expected. There's a sentence in here that drives the whole motivating factor of this whole article right here. Hybrid systems are now giving a lifeline, adding power without killing the character of a naturally aspirated engine. So we're seeing these very high-end, wicked powerful hypercars, supercars that are changing directions a little bit, and it's interesting. So, and again, it could lead to what we're going to start seeing here with some of this stuff too. Starting with, if it hits the truck world, it'll hit with like the Ranger Raptor, the F-150 Raptor, the TRX, the things like this. But will they follow suit with some of this and go this way? I find it interesting. Naturally aspirated engines are coming back in focus because they work better for car makers than turbos in many real situations. They deliver predictable power under load, put less stress on components, and have fewer failure points. That makes them cheaper to build, easier to service, and far less risky when it comes to long-term warranties. On paper, turbocharged 6 might look efficient, but once you factor in the complexity of the extra plumbing, intercoolers, high cylinder pressures, the numbers don't always hold. A big, simple V8 will prove durable, looking like a safer business case. Customers recognize that, too, especially when you keep their cars for years rather than leasing and moving on. Now, again, maybe they are talking about high-end cars that don't have to deal with the EPA BS, but in the real world, as we see every day, the EPA BS crap we got to deal with, the MDS, the cylinder deactivation, all of this stuff is destroying our V8s. Our V8s have got all sorts of problems by every brand, and it is very upsetting. So when they're talking about this, I'm assuming they're talking more about the supercars, because whatever they're saying here on paper, the proof is that the turbos are holding up much more reliable and much better and much less issues for manufacturers, way less warranty cost than what the V8s actually are. Again, in all the V8 problems are not the V8s. The V8 problems are the EPA BS that is on them. That is our battle today. But this is interesting here, what we're looking at. Moving down. Says right here, turbocharging swept through the industry because it ticked all the right boxes on paper. Small engines with boost could slip past emission targets, fit into tighter engine bays, and still put out numbers that look good on spec sheets. Marketing loved the story: big power, small displacement, and efficiency all in one neat package. However, it's not about what's on paper. It's about what happens when you stomp the pedal. Naturally aspirated engines need a big, heavy block to make serious power, and that sucks down gas even when you're just cruising. A modern turbo, for instance, like the Ford EcoBoost, works with a clever trick called right-sizing. It uses a small efficiency engine for daily driving with low internal friction and great gas mileage, and when you need to pass or merge, the turbo spools up. It gives you the power and of a much larger engine. That's a huge win in a real-world scenario, obviously. And a pretty brilliant system how it works. But the honeymoon didn't last, it says. Turbos generate serious heat, which means more plumbing, intercoolers, less stress, and stress on components. The complexity drives up the warranty claims. It may have in the past. Like I said, they build them right now. Okay, Ford's EcoBoost is prone to head gasket cooling failure systems across the forms. Again, in the past. Right now, if you... these engines are built to handle this stuff today, and they're phenomenal at it. That's not what we care about. We're not talking about durability of turbos because they're proven. We're talking about this route, and it's interesting. But all this was important, and I lead you up to this. Okay, says, I'll bet the bigger problem is the supposed efficiency gains don't always hold up. Take, for example, a work truck that needs good low-end torque. Turbo 4 or 6 works overtime to haul heavy load, often burns just as much fuel as a larger one. We understand that, okay? The contrast shows automakers rethinking forced induction. After a decade chasing turbos, they're running against the limits, and naturally aspirated engines are suddenly the smarter bet. But how? Hypercars drop turbos, showing the future is headed. The hypercar, and I know I'm reading this one almost 100% as it is, but it really is an important one. Don't give me a hard time for this and comment, hey, I could have read the article myself too. Normally I try to be a little more selective in the thing, but this one's pretty important. And like I said, and honestly, if you don't like the way I do these videos, feel free to not watch them no more. Okay, this is your best bet. But the hypercar world usually sets the tone for what trickles down into the regular performance cars. And right now, the biggest names are walking away from turbos. Ferrari, Pagani, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, even Bugatti, they are all proving that naturally aspirated engines paired with hybrid systems are the smarter play for the next decade. Powerful, but here it is again. You see that? You see that same sentence right here where I said it. Okay, paired with hybrid systems. Ferrari's new 12-cylinder keeps the screaming V12 alive. They're doing it, and they're telling you all about these specs on here, what they're doing. But naturally aspirated engines are not just the hypercar flex. Mass-produced high-performance models are also using naturally aspirated engines. Ford still sells the Mustang GT Dark Horse with its Coyote V8, showing that naturally aspirated muscle hasn't gone anywhere. So as the Hemi is returned. But some car makers state that turbos add complexity and rob of practical durability. Solutions seem to be leverage meeting emissions targets and not compromising on performance. Various supercars say use hybridization, cylinder deactivation, and several other technologies to achieve the same goals without the need for forced induction. So here it is. So what they're doing is they are talking about Bugatti dropped in a quad turbo, or dropped the quad turbo W16 engine used in these models and replaced it with a naturally aspirated V16 assisted by 3 electric motors making 1,775 horsepower. When discussing hypercars, the decision to go naturally aspirated for the tourbillon to Top Gear he's what he said. He said, I drive them all and I don't get it really. Why would we have a hybrid powertrain with a turbo engine? Like, a turbo engine is a compromise in its own right. By going from turbo to naturally aspirated, we lose 600 volt horsepower. I knew we could make that up with the electric powertrain. So they're replacing the turbo systems with hybrid systems, getting rid of all the issues that come with turbo and gaining the added benefits of coming from electric power, hybrid systems, and that instantaneous electric power. Hybrid system fixed the one real weakness of naturally aspirated engines that even turbos couldn't: efficiency and low-end torque. Electric motors fill in the bottom of the rev range, leaving the naturally aspirated engine free to deliver clean, linear power without the stress of turbos. Naturally aspirated engines, particularly when assisted with a hybrid system, are proving easier to live with, more durable, and a lot more fun at the limit. Pretty interesting when you think about this. So these guys are making, these are big time serious cars here. And they're realizing that the turbos, in the past, turbos were our best bet to get more power out of an engine. But now they're like, okay, well, now hybrid and the electric engine is where the real power can be added in and fill all those gaps and solve everything. But why turbo? Or why put a hybrid on a turbo where you still deal with all the turbo problems? Why not go straight with the hybrid to naturally aspirated and let the hybrid pick up the benefits? That's what's happening. Will that be what we start seeing coming down the road for trucks, for super trucks, for everyday use, for trucks that are towing a lot rather than being turbo? Will they be like the Ram Charger that we were seeing? Is this the route we're going? And will turbos eventually go away because of the downsides to them compared to a naturally aspirated engine being backed up by electric motors? We shall see. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on it. Let me know. Thanks for watching.